Morning Moves, Tuesday, July the 22nd. I am Bosun Mofai. Welcome to the show, everyone.
And I am Melissa Enoch. I hope you've all had a great Tuesday so far.
Thank you, Melissa. Let's begin with news now. Of course, the Central Bank of Nigeria has kept the country's monetary policy rate unchanged at 27.50%. The rate-setting body of the Central Bank also retained the asymmetric corridor at plus 500 and minus 100 basis points as the country's inflation remains soft at 22.22% in June. Let's get more from the post-MPC press briefing by the Central Bank Governor, Olayemi Cardoso.
The committee decided to maintain the current monetary policy stance and hold all policy parameters constant as follows. 1, retain the monetary policy rate, MPR, at 27.50%. 2, maintain the asymmetric corridor around the MPR at plus 500 to minus 100 basis points. 3, retain the cash reserve ratio, CRR, for deposit money banks at 50% and for merchant banks at 16%. And 4, keep the liquidity ratio unchanged at 30%.
All right, meanwhile, Ethiopia has revised its country's withholding tax. Now, a new regime is expected to kick in later next week. That's Friday, the 1st of August. The revised tax rule requires businesses to withhold 3% tax on payment for goods and services. Now, the move formalizes Ethiopia's recent amendments to the country's income tax law, which was approved last week. Now, let's go to Melissa for the rest of today's News Now. Hi, Melissa.
Yeah, Bosin, thank you very much. The African Finance Corporation has announced the sealing of a landmark $255 million sustainability-linked term loan facility through a consortium of banks based in the United Arab Emirates. The loan will embed sustainability performance targets, time borrowing costs to AFC's environmental outcomes. The deal also diversifies AFC's funding base beyond traditional markets and underscores the rising role of green finance in Africa's infrastructure agenda. The Zambian government is looking to build a 60,000 barrels a day crude oil refinery. The 1.1 billion refining capacity is to be actualized in partnership with Fujian Shenzhen Corporation of China and is expected to save Zambia millions of dollars in annual fuel imports. The refinery, to be located in Ndola, is scheduled to be operational in 2026, with crude for the refinery to be sourced from the Middle East and imported through the Tanzanian port located in Dar es Salaam. The size of the Nigerian economy has expanded some 40% based on the rebasing of the gross domestic product data that was released on Monday. The GDP of Africa's most populous country is now worth $243 billion, reflecting an 18.30 year-on-year increase in nominal terms. The GDP was rebased back to 2019 by the Statistics Office, showing first quarter 2025 economic growth of 3.13% in the report. This is the second time that Nigeria is rebasing its GDP data in 15 years, which places the country at number 4 in Africa. Finally, in corporate news, Econet Wireless Limited, listed on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, has sustained its market dominance with 81% in data, with rural data traffic up 20.7% in its first quarter ending in May. The telco also reports a significant 44% rise in voice calls connectivity. Econet Wireless also saw a key expansion across its subsidiaries. EcoShield posted a 43% increase in policies, while EcoCash transactions grew by 27%. And that's your news now. I am Melissa Enoch. Bolson is up next after the break for our full markets coverage. Stand by, everyone.
Back to the show, everyone. Let's track some of today's trading data from here at the FMDQ ticker tape room. And of course, you can track, you go online to FMDQ, you find today's bond market and treasury bills data just running on that ticker tape. Now, let's look at the number of frontier African markets closed with today's session already. Some of the biggest exchanges on the continent, on the equity side, finished positive again for another day. Let's start from Mauritius on the Atlantic Ocean, that island. The SEMDEX was up 0.27% today after it was closed on Monday for the President's Day. The SEMDEX finished 2,362.85 today. Go to the top of the table you're looking at with the Nigerian NGX 132,451, up by roughly a 0.5% after yesterday's big jump as well to start the new week. The BRVM, the biggest exchange on equities on the West Coast, was up 0.56%. That's taking the BRVM close to 310 on the composite. The Nairobi market up by 0.8% today. Go to South Africa, the market softened by 0.62%. We're thinking that the JSE, the biggest exchange on the continent, will cross the 100,000 anytime soon. The EGX also down by 0.96% today. That's a downside, while the Zimbabwe market was up just by 0.02%. We have quite a number of corporate news coming out of Zimbabwe market, such as the OK Zimbabwe reporting on the plan to sell some of its immovable assets, about 7 of them, as it were. They got an extraordinary general meeting of the shareholders. That has been approved. That will fetch the company a couple of millions of dollars to expand its operations in Zimbabwe. But let's move on. This is very interesting to see this big dive on the South Africa as a 10-year paper, and that's now printing 9.845%. That's a whopping 1.4% today, according to this data from investing.com, 1312 GMT. That's what South Africa's 10-year paper looked like after we've seen this 10-year instrument staying around 9.95% for most of the sessions last week and starting Monday as well. Let me roll that over and go into currencies. The rand was trading 17.54 on the US dollar today, 0.43%. The naira was 1,532.7, around 1309 GMT, 0.25%. The Kenyan shilling is teetering around 130 to the US dollar. That's 0.16%. Now, let me move to commodities. And you've got the whole oil prices you're looking at. I'm sure you've seen the news around the global oil market with supply concerns, whether there'll be a glut during the winter season coming and all of that. There are concerns about from traders. But we're seeing oil prices now well below some of the budget benchmarks, which includes Nigeria, 68.81, which is for the London Brent for Nigeria, 0.58%. US WTI printing 66.92. President Trump says he wants lower oil prices. He's asked everyone to lower oil prices. Is this working? Well, it's anyone's guess. Now, let me roll that and go to commodities. With gold surging yesterday back strongly above the 3,300 level, printing a new 3,400 Monday. That got stronger today by another 0.25%. That's where we were at about 12.59 GMT. Copper prices also move up 0.44%. It was a big Monday. If you try the markets yesterday, metal prices, basic resources, precious metals were all red hot on Monday, and today that's not looking any different. Aluminum's up 1.4%. That's aluminum now cruising well strongly into the $2,600 reading. Iron ore also up 0.64%, 97.84. Now, let me finish the markets round as always. That's where we finished off, around the soft commodities. Cocoa prices, 8,104. Cocoa prices started moving up. That's per metric ton because of the news out of Côte d'Ivoire. Now, because of what is expected in terms of the total output from that country, Côte d'Ivoire, the biggest cocoa exporter in the world, 0.64%. Prices decelerating from where we were slightly on Monday. Coffee prices, Brazil, according to latest data on Monday, has now done about 77% of its coffee output so far for this year. That's that's bigger than 74% what it did for last year. So the market believes that yes, there will be enough coffee on the market, and that taking the price below the 300 level to $94.50. That's 0.87. The prices start creeping back up today. That's future prices if you look at the market on the New York ICE as well as the London market. Cotton prices up by 0.1%. And finally, palm oil. Will palm oil cross $1,000 on the spot market anytime soon? That's what I'm looking at, 991.61. You can see that on the screen. 0.09% is ticking towards that level. What's the play between Malaysia, Indonesia, and India, three of the biggest palm oil players in the world? What happened to the currency and the output and the inventory from these big countries vis-a-vis the price of soya oil, which is the main rival to palm oil when you talk about oil, globally speaking. All of that in play. We've got 3 more sessions so far, for 2 sessions so far this week, 3 more sessions before we end the 3rd week in July. Keep an eye on some of this data. Keep an eye here on Money Moves. And that's about it for today's package of the show. From me, Bosun Namafai, and the rest of the team here at the FMDQ studios in Lagos, Nigeria. Have a great day, everyone, and see you back here tomorrow.